The mahogany doors of Miller Industries' main conference room swung open as I walked in, my heels clicking against the marble floor. The board members barely glanced up. They never did. To them, I was just Sophie Miller, the founder's youngest daughter, the one who played at business while her stepbrother James ran the company. "Coffee, black, 2 sugars," James called out without looking up from his papers. "And make sure it's hot this time." I straightened my Armani suit, not that they'd notice, and took my seat at the far end of the table. "Actually, I'm here for the board meeting." My stepmother Catherine's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. "Sophie, dear, this is an executive board meeting. Perhaps you misunderstood the memo." "No misunderstanding," I replied, opening my laptop. "As majority shareholder, I have every right to be here." That got their attention. James looked up from his financial reports, his confident smirk faltering slightly. "Majority shareholder? That's impossible. Father controls 51% of the shares." "Controlled," I corrected quietly. Past tense. My father, William Miller, finally deigned to acknowledge my presence. "Sophie, what game are you playing?" I projected a document onto the conference room screen. A share transfer agreement dated 6 months ago. "No game, father. Just good business." While James was busy running the company into the ground, I was buying shares through my investment firm. As of last week, I own 63% of Miller Industries. The room erupted in disbelief. "This must be a joke. She can't possibly." "William, did you know about this?" My phone buzzed. Messages from various family members who just received the official notification. "Cousin Thomas, tell me this is a mistake." "Aunt Rebecca, how did you get the money to buy shares?" "Uncle Philip, does your father know about this?" To answer everyone's questions at once, I said, raising my voice slightly, "This is not a mistake. I used the money from my other businesses, the ones you all dismissed as hobby companies. And yes, father knows now." James stood up, his face reddening. "This is ridiculous. You can't just walk in here and..." "Surely I can. Section 8.3 of the company bylaws. Majority shareholders can call emergency board meetings and make immediate leadership changes." I smiled. "Would you like me to continue quoting the bylaws you never bothered to read?" Catherine's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. "Sophie, if this is about us asking you to handle the catering for board meetings, this is about the $300 million in losses James has hidden through creative accounting," I interrupted, projecting more documents. "About the shell companies he created to hide failed investments. About the fact that our stock has dropped 40% while he played CEO." The color drained from James's face. "How did you access the real numbers?" I finished for him. "Amazing what you can find when people think you're just the coffee girl. They leave their computers unlocked, speak freely around you, forget you have a business degree from Harvard." My father's voice turned stern, the voice that had dismissed my business ideas for years. "Sophie, you're making serious accusations against your brother." "Stepbrother," I corrected. "And they're not accusations. They're documented facts. Facts that the SEC will be very interested in, along with the shareholders you've been misleading." I pressed a button on my phone. "Security, please come to the main conference room. And bring the auditors." James lunged for his laptop, but I was faster. "Remote access has already been disabled," I informed him. "Along with all executive credentials. Amazing what you can do when you actually understand technology instead of relying on yes men." "You can't do this," he sputtered. "I'm the CEO. I corrected, pulling up another document. "The board's about to vote on new leadership. Though given the SEC investigation that's about to begin, your title might be defendant soon." My father stood, trying to regain control of his crumbling empire. "Now see here, young lady." "No, you see here," I cut him off. "For 10 years I watched you let James run this company into the ground. I sat in this room, bringing coffee while he made terrible decision after terrible decision. Did any of you ever wonder why I took those menial jobs? Why I volunteered to handle catering, take notes, fetch coffee?" The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Every meeting," I continued, "every casual conversation in the break room, every document left lying around, I saw it all. The questionable contracts, the manipulated numbers, the shell companies. I built a case while serving James his precious triple-shot espresso. Catherine's designer bracelet clinked against the table as she reached for her phone. I'm calling our lawyers. Already here, I smiled as the conference room doors opened. Along with the SEC investigators and forensic accountants. Though not the lawyers you're thinking of. They're a bit busy right now, being questioned about their role in James's creative accounting. The security team filed in, followed by stern-faced men and women carrying briefcases. Ms. Miller, the lead investigator, nodded to me. We're ready to begin. James's face went from red to pale. You're working with the SEC? Have been for months, I confirmed. Those weekend charity events I organized? Perfect cover for meetings with investigators. You all thought I was just plain party planner. My phone buzzed again, more family messages. Cousin Sarah, OMG, what's happening? Uncle George, the SEC? What did you do? Aunt Margaret, our shares. What about our shares? Your shares are safe, I announced to the room. Well, as safe as they can be given how much value James has destroyed. But don't worry, I have a recovery plan. One that doesn't involve hiding losses in offshore accounts. The forensic accountants began setting up their equipment while security collected laptops and phones. This is a mistake. My father tried one last time. Sophie, we're family. Family. I laughed. Like when you made me serve coffee to my younger cousins during board meetings. Or when James said I should stick to women's work, instead of finance. My phone lit up with a news alert. Breaking. Miller Industries under SEC investigation, emergency leadership change expected. The forensic accountants worked methodically, their presence making James increasingly nervous. He kept glancing at his phone, probably trying to delete evidence, not knowing I'd already secured copies of everything. Let's review the last 3 years, I said, pulling up more documents. Project Phoenix. A $100 million investment in a tech startup that mysteriously vanished. Care to explain that, James? That was a legitimate business loss, he protested weakly. Really? Because the money trail leads to a shell company in the Caymans. Your shell company? I turned to the board members. Did any of you approve this investment? Did you even know about it? The blank faces around the table answered my question. Then there's the Richardson merger, I continued. James reported a $50 million acquisition cost to the board. The actual cost? $75 million. The difference conveniently disappeared into offshore accounts. My father's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. These are serious allegations. Facts, I corrected, nodding to the SEC investigators. All documented, all verified. Would you like to see the evidence I've collected while serving your coffee for the past 3 years? Catherine stood up, her designer outfit suddenly looking like expensive armor. This is absurd. You can't possibly understand these complex business matters. Harvard MBA summa cum laude, I interrupted. Plus a master's in financial forensics. You'd know that if you'd ever bothered to read my resume instead of asking me to handle the Christmas party planning. My phone buzzed with breaking news alerts. Miller Industries stock halted amid EC probe. Major leadership shakeup expected at Miller Industries. Sources report massive accounting irregularities. James made a desperate grab for his briefcase, but security was faster. In that briefcase, I informed the investigators, you'll find documents about Project Chimera, another failed investment hidden through creative accounting. James has a copy of the real numbers in the false bottom. How did you, James sputtered, know about the false bottom? I smiled. I've been watching you hide documents there every Tuesday after the executive meetings. Amazing what you notice when people think you're just part of the furniture. The lead investigator opened the briefcase, finding exactly what I'd described. James slumped in his chair, defeated. Now, I continued, let's discuss the company's future. First order of business. Accepting James's resignation effective immediately. You can't force me to resign, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Actually, I can. Section 10.4 of the company bylaws. Majority shareholders can remove executives for cause. Would you prefer I list all the causes, or should we move straight to the criminal charges? The room fell silent as security began escorting non-essential personnel out. The board members sat frozen, watching their comfortable world collapse. For those wondering about their positions, I announced, The board will be restructured. Those who knowingly participated in James's schemes will be joining him in early retirement. Those who were merely negligent, I paused, looking at each face, will have a chance to prove their value to the new management. My father finally found his voice. The investors, the major shareholders, have already been briefed, I finished for him. While you were all laughing at my little investment club, I was building relationships with institutional investors. They're fully behind the leadership change. I projected another document, a letter of support signed by our largest institutional shareholders. The same ones who'd been growing increasingly concerned about James's management but had been stonewalled by the family's control. Till now. Ms. Miller, my assistant called from the doorway. The press is gathering in the lobby. They're requesting a statement about the SEC investigation. James jerked up. The press? You invited the press. No, James. Your creative accounting invited the press. I just made sure they got an accurate tip about where to find the story. I turned to my assistant. Tell them we'll have a full statement in an hour. And make sure they have copies of the preliminary audit findings. Catherine's perfectly manicured hands trembled as she reached for her designer bag. This will destroy the family name. The family name? I laughed. The same name you used to justify excluding me from real business discussions? The name James hid behind while embezzling millions? That name needs some destruction. My phone lit up with more family messages. Cousin David, our family shares, are they worthless now? Uncle Henry, what have you done to our legacy? Aunt Patricia, how could you betray family like this? Interesting, I said, reading the messages aloud. None of you were concerned about betraying family when you relegated me to serving coffee. Or when James used company funds to buy his third vacation home while cutting employee benefits. The forensic accountants were efficiently boxing up documents and hard drives. One of them approached with a preliminary report. Ms. Miller, we've already found evidence of at least $400 million in misappropriated funds. James went pale. My father's hands gripped his armrests so hard his knuckles turned white. Thank you, I said, taking the report. Please make sure the SEC gets copies immediately. I turned back to the stunned faces around the table. Now, shall we discuss the company's restructuring plan? Or would anyone else like to try explaining these numbers first? The doors opened as security and board members filed in. The board chairman, Mr. Harrison, who had secretly supported my investigation, nodded respectfully in my direction. Ms. Miller, he announced formally, the board has unanimously approved your appointment as CO, effective immediately. James collapsed into his chair, his perfect world crumbling. The board? Our board? Dad, you're the chairman emeritus. Stop this. Father looked at the financial records still displayed on the screen, then at the board members. The truth was finally sinking in. You all knew about this? We've been watching Sophie's progress for years, Mr. Harrison explained. While James was hiding losses, she was building a reputation in the financial world under her professional name. Professional name? Catherine's perfectly manicured hand clutched her designer bag. What professional name? I smiled. Sarah Maxwell. The same Sarah Maxwell who was named Financial Times CEO of the Year last month. The one James actually quoted in his presentation earlier about innovative business strategies. The irony of James unknowingly praising my business acumen in his last presentation as CEO wasn't lost on anyone in the room. That's impossible, Mother whispered. Sophie. Sarah Maxwell. She's the youngest woman to build a billion-dollar investment empire? I finished for her. The one who turned around failing companies like Preston Global and TechFusion? Yes, that's me. Though you'd know that if any of you had bothered to check what I was actually doing instead of assuming I was playing at business. Security approached James. Sir, we need you to step away from your computer. SEC protocols require immediate securing of all executive devices. This is our company, James protested weakly. Our family's legacy. And I'm family, I reminded him. The family member you all dismissed. The one you said would never understand real business. The next hour was a blur of activity. SEC investigators started their audit, security escorted James and his executive team out, and the board convened to approve immediate changes. Through it all, my family sat in stunned silence, watching their carefully constructed hierarchy collapse. My phone buzzed with urgent messages from reporters. Wall Street Journal. Exclusive interview with the new CEO? Bloomberg. Comment on the SEC investigation? CNBC. Live interview request for market opening? Before we conclude, I address the room. Let's be clear about what happens next. The company stays in the family, just under different management. Proper management. And us? Mother asked quietly. What happens to us? You'll retain your shares, minus voting rights until the SEC investigation concludes. Your dividends will continue, though they might be smaller once we start reporting real numbers instead of James's creative accounting. James, being escorted out, turned back one last time. The coffee runs, he said bitterly. We made you do coffee runs. Yes, I agreed, sitting in his former chair. And while you were all congratulating yourselves in the boardroom, I built an empire that could buy your company 3 times over. Funny how life works out, isn't it? The security team finished escorting my family out. Through the window, I watched their luxury cars pulling away from the building that would soon have a new name on it. My phone rang, the Forbes editor I'd been working with. Ready for your cover story? She asked. We're thinking, from coffee runs to corner office, how Sophie Miller built an empire while serving espresso. I looked around the boardroom where I'd been dismissed for so many years, now mine along with everything else. Perfect, I replied. But let's do the photo shoot in the break room, next to the coffee machine where they always said I belonged. A message flashed on my screen. Miller Industries stock to resume trading under new leadership. Analysts predict 50% jump on opening. I smiled, remembering all the board meetings I'd spent serving coffee while memorizing spreadsheets and recording conversations. Turns out the best seat in the house was behind the coffee cart. They just didn't know it. One more thing, I told my assistant. Send a memo to all employees. First order of business under new management. The break room staff gets a raise. After all, I smiled, some of the best business lessons happen while serving coffee. The sun was setting over the city skyline as I stood in my new office, James's old corner suite. On my desk sat a single coffee cup, a reminder of where I started and how far I'd come. Tomorrow the business world would wake up to a new Miller Industries. One run by the coffee girl they should have taken seriously. The invitation to my mother's 60th birthday celebration at Le Cirque sat untouched on my desk, mocking me with its gold embossed lettering. Next to it, my father's text message glowed on my phone screen. No failures allowed. Don't embarrass us in front of the Evans family. The Evans family, owners of Evans Global Technologies, where my sister Caroline worked as chief marketing officer. The same company that had rejected my job application 5 years ago, setting off the chain of events that led my family to label me the black sheep. Ms. Rodriguez? My assistant Maya's voice came through the intercom. The quarterly reports are ready for review, and the board members are asking about tomorrow's strategy meeting. Thank you, Maya. I glanced at the stack of acquisition papers on my desk, documents that would make my parents' precious Evans family look like small-time players. Any word from legal about the non-disclosure agreements? All signed and verified. The Evans family has no idea their CEO is meeting with us tomorrow. I smiled, remembering Caroline's smug voice at last year's Thanksgiving dinner. Some of us actually made something of our engineering degrees, Julia. Not everyone ends up in a tiny consulting firm. Tiny. That's what they thought Rivera Enterprises was, just another boutique consulting agency run by their unsuccessful daughter. They never questioned why I drove a modest car or lived in a simple apartment. Never wondered how I could afford my assistant's salary on a consultant's income. My phone buzzed again, another text from Dad. Caroline says Robert Evans himself is attending tonight. Dress appropriately. Don't mention your situation. My situation being the successful tech empire I'd built right under their noses. The one that was about to acquire Evans Global Technologies in what the business world would call a hostile takeover, but what I called karmic justice. Maya entered with a fresh cup of coffee and more papers to sign. Your sister called again. Wanted to remind you about the dress code. Let me guess, she suggested I borrow something suitable? I took a sip of coffee, perfectly prepared as always. Did you confirm the arrangements for tomorrow? Yes, ma'am. The Evans board will be here at 9 a.m. sharp. They still think it's just a routine consultation meeting. Maya hesitated. Are you sure you want to go to the dinner tonight? You could wait until tomorrow when I reveal that their failure daughter owns 3 times the market share of Evans Global. Oh Maya. Tonight needs to happen first. I stood, walking to the window of my private office. The real one, not the modest space I kept for family visits. They need to see it in person. Need to realize exactly who they've been looking down on all these years. The city stretched out below, half the buildings visible either owned by my company or housing businesses we controlled. Including Le Cirque, though my family didn't know that either. Your mother's gift has arrived, Maya added, gesturing to a small box on the side table. Inside lay a simple silver necklace, modest by my standards, but exactly what they'd expect from their struggling daughter. The real gift would come tomorrow, when they learned that Mom's favorite charity, the one Caroline always made a show of donating to, had a new anonymous owner. One who'd already doubled its endowment. The car is ready whenever you are, Maya reminded me. Though I still think you should take the Bentley instead of the Prius. The Prius fits their narrative, I replied, gathering my things. Besides, watching Robert Evans do a double take when he realizes who's really running tomorrow's meeting will be worth every condescending comment about my car. I checked my reflection in the window. Simple black dress, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back conservatively. The image of an unsuccessful consultant, exactly as they expected. Maya, have legal send the final acquisition papers to my private email. And make sure security knows to expect the Evans family tomorrow morning. I picked up my mother's gift and the invitation. Time to go play the failure one last time. Good luck, Maya called as I headed out. Try not to enjoy their shock too much. But we both knew I would. After 5 years of snide comments and exclusion, of watching Caroline preen about her corporate success while my parents beamed, of enduring their attempts to help their struggling daughter. Yes, I was going to enjoy every moment. My phone buzzed one final time. Caroline, Daddy says you're actually coming. Try not to mention your little consulting business to Robert Evans. Some of us have real careers to protect. I typed back a simple, see you soon, then slipped the phone into my bag right next to the folder containing proof that I'd owned the restaurant for the past year. The Prius waited outside, its modest appearance the perfect prop for my last performance as the family disappointment. Tomorrow the business world would know Rivera Enterprises as the tech giant that devoured Evans Global Technologies. But tonight I would watch them fawn over Robert Evans one last time, knowing that in less than 24 hours he'd be working for me. Le Cirque's private dining room hummed with expensive conversation and the gentle clink of crystal glasses. I sat quietly at the far end of the table, watching my sister Caroline hold court with the Evans family, her designer dress competing with the chandeliers for sparkle. And then, she gushed, Robert personally selected me to lead the Asian market expansion. Isn't that right, Robert? Robert Evans nodded indulgently, exactly the way I'd seen him do in board meetings when he was barely listening. My parents beamed at Caroline while pointedly ignoring my existence, their usual strategy when important people were around. Julia. My mother's voice carried that familiar tone of forced politeness. Didn't you handle some spreadsheets for a tech company once? Perhaps Robert could offer some career advice. I hid my smile behind my water glass, thinking of the comprehensive analysis of Evans Global's vulnerabilities sitting in my briefcase. Actually, Mom, Oh, look. Caroline interrupted right on cue. The CEO of Sterling Tech just arrived. Robert, you simply must hear about their merger proposal. My phone vibrated silently, Maya sending updates about tomorrow's meeting. The Evans board members had all confirmed their attendance, still blissfully unaware that they were walking into their own corporate execution. Speaking of mergers, Robert Evans suddenly turned to me, surprising everyone at the table. I understand you do some consulting work, Ms. Rodriguez? Caroline nearly choked on her wine. Dad quickly intervened. Oh, Julia just handles small local clients. Nothing that would interest Actually, I set down my glass, meeting Robert's eyes. I'd love to discuss business, Mr. Evans. Particularly your company's interesting position in the market. Julia, Mom hissed. I'm sure Mr. Evans doesn't want to discuss No, please. Robert leaned forward, his CEO instincts clearly sensing something. I'm curious about your perspective on our position. I pulled out my tablet, ignoring Caroline's mortified expression. Well, for instance, your cybersecurity infrastructure is dangerously outdated. Your market share in emerging technologies has dropped 15% in the last quarter, and your Asian expansion plan, I glanced at Caroline, is hemorrhaging money at an alarming rate. The table fell silent. Robert Evans's face had gone slightly pale. How could you possibly know? He began. The same way I know about the pending class action lawsuit from your Singapore investors. The one you've managed to keep quiet so far. I smiled, watching Caroline's perfectly made-up face crumble. The same way I know your board is meeting tomorrow morning to discuss a potential hostile takeover. Dad stood up abruptly. Julia, that's enough of your . Your 9 a.m. meeting? Robert Evans interrupted, his voice suddenly hoarse. At Rivera Enterprises? I nodded, enjoying the confusion on my family's faces. Rivera. Caroline's eyes widened. But that's the company that's been buying up tech firms across the country. The one everyone calls the silent giant, because no one knows who runs it. Well, I stood slowly, straightening my simple dress. Almost no one. The maitre d' approached our table, bowing slightly. Ms. Rodriguez, is everything to your satisfaction? It's fine, James. Though I think we'll be needing the private conference room soon. I turned back to my stunned family. By the way, I've owned this restaurant for about a year now. The food is excellent, isn't it? You what? Mom whispered. Own Le Cirque. I smiled. Among other things, the building your precious Evans Global operates from, for instance. The tech company that handles your cybersecurity, or rather fails to handle it. The investment firm that manages your corporate accounts. Robert Evans had gone from pale to ashen. Tomorrow's meeting, your Julia Rivera, CEO of Rivera Enterprises. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a folder. Though my family knows me better as their unsuccessful daughter who just handles spreadsheets. Caroline stood up so quickly she knocked over her wine glass. This is impossible. You run a small consulting firm. You drive a Prius. Image management, dear sister. While you were bragging about corner offices and expense accounts, I was quietly building an empire. I turned to Robert Evans. Now about tomorrow's meeting. Shall we discuss the terms of your surrender here, or would you prefer to wait until morning? Dad found his voice, though it shook slightly. All this time, when we were trying to help you find a real job. I had one, I replied calmly. Several thousand employees, offices in 12 countries, and a market valuation that makes Evans Global look like a corner store. I paused, savoring the moment. Speaking of which, Caroline, you might want to update your resume. I hear Rivera Enterprises has very high standards for its marketing department. The maitre d' returned. The conference room is ready, Ms. Rodriguez. And your legal team has arrived. Perfect timing. I stood gathering my things. Mom, I'm sorry to discuss business at your birthday dinner, but you always said family should come first. I smiled at Robert Evans. Shall we, Robert? Time to sign over your company. As I led a shell-shocked Robert Evans toward the conference room, I heard Caroline burst into tears and Mom whisper, all those times we called her unsuccessful. Oh, and Caroline? I called back over my shoulder. About that Asian market expansion you were bragging about. I'm shutting it down tomorrow. Consider it my birthday gift to Mom, saving the family name from your spectacular failure. The conference room door closed behind us, leaving my family to digest the fact that their disappointing daughter now owned not just this restaurant, but their entire corporate world. Happy birthday, Mom. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Rivera Enterprises' real executive floor, the one my family had never seen. I sat at the head of the gleaming conference table, watching the Evans Global board members file in, their faces a mix of confusion and growing dread. Caroline entered last, her designer outfit noticeably less pristine than usual. Her eyes widened as she took in my true office, so different from the modest consulting space I'd shown the family. Please everyone take a seat, I gestured to the chairs. I believe you all met my sister Caroline at last night's enlightening dinner. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Robert Evans stared fixedly at the acquisition documents in front of him. Now, I continued, let's discuss the future of Evans Global Technologies. Or rather, what's left of it after this morning's market opening. Maya entered silently, distributing tablets showing Evans Global's plummeting stock price. Caroline gasped audibly. As you can see, I tapped my own screen. News of the acquisition has already leaked. Your shareholders are understandably nervous. This is revenge, Caroline suddenly burst out. Because they didn't hire you 5 years ago. I laughed softly. Hire me? Caroline, I never wanted to work for Evans Global. That rejection letter was exactly what I needed, motivation to build something better. I turned to the board. Though I must thank you all. Your dismissive form letter was quite inspiring. A knock at the door interrupted us. My parents entered, looking painfully out of place among the corporate executives. Julia, Mom started, we needed to dash. Take your seats, I interrupted smoothly. You should witness this, considering how often you've questioned my career choices. Dad's face reddened. Now see here, Dash. No, Dad, you see here. I stood, commanding the room's attention. For 5 years, you've belittled my choices, mocked my supposed lack of success, and held Caroline up as the model of achievement. I gestured to the trembling board members. Look around. Every person in this room now works for me. Including your precious golden child. Caroline's mascara was starting to run. You can't just dash. I already have. I pressed a button and the wall screens lit up with real-time market data. Rivera Enterprises now owns 51% of Evans Global's shares. We control the board, the assets, and the future of every person in this room. What do you want? Robert Evans finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. What I've always wanted, excellence. Innovation. Success. I smiled. Unfortunately, your company provides none of these. So we'll be dismantling it piece by piece. Mom let out a small sob. Julia, please, Dash. Please what, Mom? Show mercy? Like you did when you banned me from family functions for being unsuccessful? Like Caroline did when she told her society friends not to associate with her failing sister. I turned to the board members. You have 2 choices. Sign the transition agreements and keep your jobs under new management, or resign and watch your stock options become worthless by closing bell. The scratching of pens filled the silence. One by one the board members signed, avoiding Caroline's devastated gaze. As for you, dear sister, I turned to Caroline, you have a choice too. Stay on in a junior position, where you'll have to earn your advancement based on merit, not connections, or join the unemployment line. Though I should warn you, Rivera Enterprises' blacklist is quite comprehensive. Caroline's designer purse slipped from her nerveless fingers. You wouldn't. I would. I did. I have. I sat back down, surveying the wreckage of their corporate kingdom. Welcome to real success, family. Not the kind you brag about at dinner parties, but the kind that changes industries. We were wrong, Dad said quietly. About everything. Yes, you were. I nodded to Maya, who began collecting the signed documents. Now if you'll excuse me, I have an empire to run. Maya will show you out, all of you. As they filed out, shoulders slumped in defeat, I called after them. Oh, and Mom? Check your charity's donor list tomorrow. You might be surprised to learn who's been anonymously funding it all these years. The door closed behind them, leaving me alone in my tower of success. On my desk, next to acquisition reports and market analyses, sat their years of condescending text messages, printed and bound, my personal trophy of victory. Maya's voice came through the intercom. Your 10 a.m. is here, the Silicon Valley merger team. Send them in. I stood, straightening my now designer suit. Time to show them what a failure can really do. Below, I watched my family's cars pull away from the building, my building. Their world had crumbled, but mine was just beginning to rise. The law office of Jensen and Associates reeked of leather and old money. 5 of us sat in high-back chairs while Mr. Jensen, Dad's attorney for 30 years, prepared to read the will. My siblings were dressed for success. Thomas in his surgeon's finest, Maria in corporate couture, Peter in his professor's tweed, and Christine in whatever social influencers wore these days. I wore a simple black dress from a department store. The black sheep's uniform. Before we begin, Mr. Jensen adjusted his glasses, I want to express my deepest condolences. Harold Mitchell was a remarkable man. A remarkable man who hadn't spoken to his youngest daughter in 5 years. Not since I'd refused to follow the family tradition of respectable careers. Let's proceed with the reading, Mr. Jensen continued, opening an expensive leather folder. Being of sound mind and body. I tuned out the legal preamble, studying my siblings instead. They'd already divided the spoils in their minds. Thomas wanted Dad's vintage car collection, particularly the 1965 Aston Martin. Maria had her eye on the summer house in Martha's Vineyard. Peter coveted Dad's extensive library and first editions. Christine wanted the Manhattan penthouse for her influencer lifestyle. To my children, Mr. Jensen's voice cut through my thoughts, I leave my legacy as follows. The next 10 minutes were exactly what I'd expected. Thomas got the cars. Maria got the vacation properties. Peter got the books and art. Christine got the penthouse and enough money to maintain her socialite status. And to my youngest daughter, Eleanor, Mr. Jensen paused, looking uncomfortable. In light of her continued defiance of family traditions and values, I leave nothing. The room fell silent. Then Christine let out a small, satisfied laugh. Furthermore, Mr. Jensen continued, she is to be excluded from all family trusts and future inheritances. Dad always did have a flair for the dramatic, Thomas smirked. I sat quietly, fingering the business card in my pocket, the one with my real company name, not the small consulting firm they thought I ran. Well, Maria stood, smoothing her designer skirt. I suppose that's settled. Mr. Jensen, when can we take possession of our inheritances? After probate, roughly 30 days, he replied. Perfect, I finally spoke. That's all I needed to know. They all turned to stare at me. Oh, come on, Ellie, Christine rolled her eyes. Don't tell me you're planning to contest the will. You know Dad's lawyers are the best. I stood, straightening my cheap dress. Actually, I was just calculating how long I'd have to wait before I could start buying everything. Peter laughed. With what money? Your little consulting business. I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. Would anyone like to see my current account balance? We're not interested in your dash, Thomas began, then stopped as I held up the screen. The number displayed made Christine's inheritance look like pocket change. That's impossible, Maria whispered. That little consulting business? I smiled. It's a subsidiary of Mitchell Global Enterprises. My company. The one that's been quietly acquiring businesses across 3 continents while you were all playing at success. Mr. Jensen was suddenly paying very close attention. You're lying, Thomas declared. We would have heard. Would you? I scrolled through my phone. You were all too busy bragging about your careers to notice who was buying up market shares. Too focused on inheriting Dad's wealth to see who was building real wealth. Mitchell Global? Peter's academic mind finally made the connection. The conglomerate that's been dominating acquisitions this year? CEO and majority shareholder, I confirmed. Though I kept my married name off the paperwork. Wouldn't want to spoil Dad's narrative about his failure daughter. Christine had gone pale, her perfectly contoured face suddenly ashen. But you drive a used car. Image management, dear sister. While you were posting about luxury brands, I was quietly building an empire. I turned to Mr. Jensen. 30 days, you said? He nodded mutely. Perfect. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Christine, that penthouse you're inheriting? The building was just acquired by one of my subsidiaries. Expect some changes to the lease terms. You wouldn't dare, she sputtered. I would. I can. I will. I smiled. Dad's not here to protect you anymore. Welcome to the real world of business. As I reached the door, Thomas called out, What are you planning? Come now, brother. You're the surgeon, you should recognize an operation when you see one. I paused. Though this one might be more of an amputation. The door closed behind me on their stunned silence. In the elevator, I sent a text to my CFO. Begin acquisition protocols. Target list. All Mitchell Estate properties. Budget whatever it takes. The response came immediately. Already prepared, ma'am. They won't know what hit them. Outside, my driver held the door of my modest car. The perfect cover for someone about to teach her family the true meaning of success. Dad had left me nothing. In 30 days I would own everything. Exactly 29 days after the will reading, I sat in my real office, the entire top floor of a building I'd recently acquired. Multiple screens displayed the status of my siblings' inheritances, each one marked for acquisition. "Ma'am," my assistant Sarah entered with her tablet, "the first offers are ready to go out. We've structured them through different subsidiaries to avoid suspicion." "Excellent." I scanned the documents. "Start with Thomas's cars. He always was the most financially reckless." Right on cue, my phone lit up with a text from Thomas. "Need cash quick. Interested in buying the Aston Martin?" I smiled, remembering his smirk at the will reading. "Have our automotive subsidiary contact him," I told Sarah. "Offer 20% below market value. He won't be able to resist quick cash." "Already done." "And Maria's vacation properties. All 6 of them." I pulled up the property evaluations. "She won't be able to afford the maintenance costs once she realizes the trust fund isn't as large as she thought." My phone buzzed again, Christine this time. "The building management is raising the penthouse rent by 300%. They can't do this." "Actually," I typed back, "they can. The new owners are quite insistent on market rate rents." Sarah cleared her throat. "Speaking of the penthouse, our property management division reports Ms. Mitchell hasn't made any payments since taking possession." "Begin eviction proceedings," I ordered. "But first, have our media division contact her top sponsorship partners. Let them know about her financial difficulties." "That's rather ruthless," Sarah observed with a slight smile. "I learned from the best. Dad always said business was war." I checked the time. "How's Peter handling the library evaluation?" "He just discovered the insurance costs for the rare book collection. Should be calling any minute." Right on cue, my phone rang. "Hello, Peter," I answered smoothly. "Having trouble with the first editions? How did you never mind?" He sounded stressed. "Listen, Ellie, about Dad's library. Would you be interested in buying it?" I finished. "As it happens, Mitchell Global's Cultural Preservation Division might be interested. Though given the current market conditions, we can only offer "I'll take it," he interrupted desperately. "Just, please don't tell the others. Your secret's safe with me, brother." I nodded to Sarah, who began preparing the paperwork. "Though I should mention, Maria's been quietly selling her properties, Thomas is liquidating the car collection, and Christine's about to be evicted." Silence on the line. "How do you know all this?" "The same way I know about your tenure rejection at the university." I paused, letting that sink in. "The same way I know about Thomas's malpractice insurance problems, Maria's failed investments, and Christine's declining social media engagement." "You've been watching us," he realized. "For 5 years." I checked another screen showing their financial records. "Ever since Dad cut me off for choosing my own path. I've watched, learned, and built something he never could, a truly global empire." "And now you're what? Taking revenge?" "No, Peter. I'm teaching a lesson about true value. Dad left me nothing because he thought I had nothing. Now I'm showing him and all of you what nothing looks like." The line went dead. Sarah returned with more reports. "The Aston Martin sale is complete. Thomas accepted our offer immediately." Of course he did. He needs the cash for his malpractice settlement. I pulled up the car's documentation. "Have it delivered to my private collection. And contact the other auction houses. We'll be bidding on the rest of the cars soon." Maria's realtor called. "She's listing the Martha's Vineyard house. Buy it through our shell company. Same for the Aspen Chalet and the Miami condo." I smiled. She always did hate managing multiple properties. My phone buzzed with a group text from my siblings. "Thomas, we need to talk." "Maria, family meeting. Now." "Christine, this isn't fair." "Peter, I know what you're doing. Should I prepare the conference room?" Sarah asked. "No." I stood, walking to the window overlooking the city. "Let them stew for a while. They're not desperate enough yet. And when they are? Then they'll learn what Dad never understood, that true power isn't inherited. It's built." I turned back to my desk. "How's the acquisition of Dad's old company progressing?" "The board votes tomorrow. Our proxy shareholders are in position." "Perfect." I sat back down, surveying the empire I'd built while my family was busy inheriting theirs. Once we control his company, the lesson will be complete. Another text buzzed through, a private message from Christine. "Please. I can't lose the penthouse. My followers. Your followers can watch you move out live on Instagram, I typed back. Consider it content creation. Sarah appeared with more documents. The rare book dealers are ready to authenticate Peter's collection. And the car transport team is en route to Thomas's garage. Excellent. I checked the time. Give them until tomorrow. When they realize their inheritances are slipping away, they'll be ready to negotiate. And then they'll learn what Dad's will really left them, a chance to experience exactly what I did 5 years ago. I smiled. Nothing. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I watched the final piece of my plan unfold on multiple screens. Dad's company shareholders were voting on the acquisition, unaware that Mitchell Global had already secured the outcome through proxy votes and strategic stock purchases. A notification popped up. Mitchell Industries acquisition approved 78% in favor. Send out the press release, I instructed Sarah. And make sure my siblings receive personal copies. Right on cue, my phone exploded with messages. Thomas, you bought Dad's company? How dare you? Maria, this is impossible. Where did you get this kind of money? Christine, I'm being evicted today. Your timing is cruel. Peter, we need to talk. All of us. Now. They're all in the lobby, Sarah reported. Security says they're quite agitated. I checked the various surveillance feeds. Thomas was pacing, his surgeon's composure shattered. Maria's designer outfit looked slept in. Christine was filming everything for her followers, though her hands shook. Peter just sat quietly, looking defeated. Send them up, I decided. It's time to end this. Minutes later, they burst into my office, stopping short at the sight of the spectacular view and wall of screens displaying their crumbling financial empires. What is this place? Christine whispered, phone still recording. My real office, I replied. Not the modest consulting space you've mocked for years. You've been lying to us this whole time, Thomas accused. No, I've been succeeding. You were all too busy counting your inheritance to notice. I gestured to the screens. Speaking of which, how's that going? Maria sank into a chair. You bought everything. The houses, the cars, the art, even Dad's company. Actually, I corrected, I bought them at significantly reduced prices because you all mismanaged your inheritances so badly. The only thing I paid premium for was Dad's company. Though given today's vote, even that was a bargain. Why? Peter finally spoke. To prove a point? To teach a lesson. I stood, walking to the window. 5 years ago, Dad cut me off for choosing my own path. You all supported him, mocked my little business, treated me like a cautionary tale. I turned back to face them. Now you know what it feels like to lose everything. We're still family, Christine pleaded. Are we? Was I family when you excluded me from your social media influencer events because I wasn't successful enough? When Thomas refused to invite me to his hospital galas? When Maria forgot to mention me to her society friends? They had the grace to look ashamed. But unlike Dad, I continued, I'm offering you a choice. Sarah entered with 4 folders, distributing them silently. What's this? Thomas asked, opening his. Employment contracts, I replied. Entry-level positions in various Mitchell Global subsidiaries. Real jobs, not the inherited titles you're used to. Entry-level. Maria looked horrified. But I was a VP at Dash. At Dad's company, which I now own. These positions reflect your actual qualifications, not your family connections. And if we refuse? Peter asked quietly. I smiled. Then enjoy watching your inheritances be absorbed into my companies. The choice is yours. Christine was already scanning her contract. Social media coordinator? But I'm an influencer. Was an influencer, I corrected. Before I bought your penthouse building and your main sponsors dropped you. Now you're someone who needs a real job. Thomas threw his folder down. This is blackmail. No, brother. This is business. The kind Dad taught us, ruthless, unforgiving, and absolute. I sat back down. You have until the end of the day to decide. Or what? Maria challenged. I pressed a button and the screens filled with their financial records. Or tomorrow I release detailed reports of how quickly you squandered your inheritances. I'm sure the media would love to know how Thomas tried to sell the Aston Martin below market value, or how Maria leveraged the properties for personal loans. Peter was already signing his contract. Always the pragmatic one. Think of it as a fresh start, I continued. A chance to earn success instead of inheriting it. To build something real like I did. While lying to us for years, Christine muttered. While watching you all celebrate my exclusion from the will. While building an empire so vast I could buy everything Dad left you without blinking. I smiled. Consider yourselves lucky. Dad left me nothing. I'm offering you actual opportunities. One by one they signed. Even Thomas, though his hand shook with rage. Welcome to Mitchell Global Enterprises, I announced as Sarah collected the contracts. Report to HR tomorrow morning. And don't be late, we're not as forgiving as Dad's company. Is this what you wanted? Maria asked bitterly. To humiliate us? No. This is what Dad wanted, to teach his children the value of real success. I turned to the screens showing the finalized company acquisition. He just never imagined I'd be the one teaching the lesson. As security arrived to escort them out, I called after them. Oh, and about Sunday family dinners? They'll continue as planned in the mansion I bought from Maria last week. The one next to the garage where Thomas's car collection used to be. The door closed on their stunned faces. Sarah appeared with acquisition reports requiring my signature. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. I looked at the empire I'd built, the lesson I'd taught, and the family I'd forced to confront their own limitations. Dad's will left me nothing, I replied, signing the papers that made his company mine. But nothing turned out to be everything I needed. Outside my office, 4 new employees headed to HR, learning their first lesson about real success. Sometimes you have to start from nothing to build something true. I sat at our family's antique dining table, staring at the birthday cake I'd bought for myself. A small, elegant creation from the local bakery. 28 candles, one for each year of disappointing my parents. The flame flickered, casting shadows across the empty chairs where my family should have been sitting. My phone buzzed. Mom's text was brief. Family meeting in 10 minutes. Important discussion. I already knew what this important discussion would be about. Earlier that day, I'd overheard my sister Amanda squealing about a surprise trip to the Maldives, a graduation present for completing her master's degree. The same degree I'd earned 5 years ago with honors, to complete silence from my parents. The front door opened and they filed in Mom in her designer suit from her job as marketing director at Maxwell Industries, Dad looking tired from his position as CFO at the same company, and Amanda, practically bouncing with excitement. Oh, you're already here, Mom said, barely glancing at my cake. Good, we need to discuss something. I noticed Amanda holding glossy travel brochures. Of course. We've made a decision, Dad began, settling into his chair at the head of the table. About your birthday dinner at Le Cirque next week. The reservation I'd made 6 months ago. The one they'd promised to attend after missing my last 3 birthdays for Amanda's various celebrations. Mom cleared her throat. We're going to need to use that money for something else. Amanda's been accepted into an exclusive networking retreat in the Maldives. It's a wonderful opportunity for her career. Pie birthday money? I kept my voice neutral, years of practice keeping the hurt hidden. The money I've been saving from my own salary? You see, 5 years ago when I'd started working at Maxwell Industries as a junior analyst, the lowest position they could give me despite my qualifications, I'd opened a family savings account. Every month, I deposited a portion of my salary, telling them it was for family emergencies and celebrations. They never questioned where the money came from. Never wondered how a junior analyst could save so much. Never noticed that their youngest daughter was quietly building something massive right under their noses. Emma, don't be selfish, Amanda cut in. This retreat could help me become CEO someday. It's not like you're doing anything important with your life. I looked at my sister, perfect Amanda, with her perfect grades, perfect hair and perfectly curated social media presence showcasing her executive lifestyle. If only she knew. We've already booked her tickets, Dad added. First class. The retreat starts next week, so we needed to act fast. Using my birthday money. I stated again, watching them squirm slightly. Well, you can always celebrate another time, Mom waved dismissively. This opportunity is too important to pass up. The retreat is being hosted by Wilson Global Enterprises. Do you know what that could mean for Amanda's career? Oh, the irony. I bit back a smile. Fine, I said simply, standing up. Take the money. I hope the trip is everything you dream of, Amanda. They stared at me, clearly expecting the usual tears or protests. Instead, I calmly picked up my untouched cake. That's it. Amanda looked suspicious. No drama. No drama. I headed toward the door, pausing only to check my watch. In exactly 14 hours at tomorrow morning's Maxwell Industries board meeting, everything would change. Emma. Mom called after me. Don't you want to hear about Amanda's retreat plans? I'm good. I smiled, thinking about the folder sitting on my desk at home. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Wouldn't want to be late. As I drove home, their words echoed in my head. Wilson Global Enterprises. The company I'd built from scratch over the past 5 years, using a different last name, keeping my identity hidden even as we became one of the fastest-growing corporations in the country. The same company that had just completed a silent takeover of Maxwell Industries. My phone rang. Sarah, my CEO. Yes, I had a CEO running the public side of my company while I worked as a junior analyst, gathering intel from the inside. Everything's set for tomorrow, she reported. The board votes are confirmed. Maxwell Industries will officially become a subsidiary of Wilson Global at 9 a.m. And my parents? Still have no idea that their disappointing daughter owns their company. Or that their precious Amanda's networking retreat is actually a screening program we set up to identify toxic corporate culture perpetuators. I pulled into my real home, not the modest apartment my family thought I lived in, but a penthouse overlooking Central Park. Has the new CEO announcement been prepared? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Yes. At 9:05 a.m. Robert and Linda Chen will be removed from their positions as CFO and Marketing Director. Their daughter Amanda's acceptance to the retreat will be rescinded due to company restructuring. I walked into my home office, where a wall of monitors displayed real-time data from all my companies. 5 years of careful planning, of playing the quiet, unsuccessful daughter while building an empire in secret. Oh, and Emma? Sarah's voice held a note of satisfaction. Lucerne called. They've upgraded your birthday dinner reservation to a full buyout of the restaurant. The board thinks it's the perfect venue to announce you as the new owner of Maxwell Industries. I looked at the family photo on my desk, taken at Amanda's graduation with me barely visible in the background. Tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow they'd learn that while they were busy planning Amanda's path to success, their other daughter had already arrived. Perfect, I said, opening my laptop to review the takeover documents one final time. Let's give them a Monday they'll never forget. Monday morning dawned crisp and clear. I dressed with particular care, not in my usual junior analyst attire of modest department store suits, but in a custom-made Chanel ensemble I'd been saving for this day. The black wool dress and jacket whispered old money and quiet power. Louboutin heels, their red soles hidden until I crossed my legs, a perfect metaphor for my hidden empire. I arrived at Maxwell Industries at 7 a.m., 2 hours before the board meeting. The security guard barely glanced at my junior analyst badge, just as he had for the past 5 years. If he only knew that I owned the building he was guarding. My tiny cubicle on the 15th floor was exactly as I'd left it. Friday family photos carefully arranged to show the modest life I supposedly led, sticky notes with basic tasks that were far beneath my actual capabilities, and the Employee of the Month certificate from 3 years ago that my parents had never even noticed. Emma, what are you doing here so early? I turned to see Amanda strutting through the office in designer workwear that screamed, trying too hard. She'd started as a special executive consultant 2 months ago, a position Dad had created specifically for her. Just finishing some reports, I said mildly. Congratulations on the Maldives retreat. She preened. Well, obviously they recognized talent when they saw it. Though. She leaned in conspiratorially. I heard Wilson Global Enterprises is planning something big with Maxwell Industries. Dad's worried they might try a hostile takeover. Is that so? I checked my watch. 7:30 a.m. Shouldn't you be preparing for the board meeting? Oh, didn't you hear? It's executives only. She smirked. Don't worry, I'll tell you all about it. Maybe you can learn something to help you finally get promoted. As she clicked away on her expensive heels, my phone buzzed. Sarah's message was simple. Teams in position. Operation Karma is go. At 8:45 a.m. I took the service elevator to the private floor above the executive boardroom, a space only I knew existed. Through the hidden observation panel, I watched the room fill with board members, executives, and my family. Mom was fussing with Amanda's hair while Dad stood at the head of the table, shuffling papers importantly. The board members looked nervous, though my parents seemed oblivious to the tension. At precisely 9 a.m. the main doors opened. Sarah walked in, followed by my legal team and security personnel. What is the meaning of this? Dad stood up, his face reddening. This is a private board meeting. Sarah smiled professionally. Mr. Chin, I'm Sarah Williams, CEO of Wilson Global Enterprises. We're here to announce some organizational changes. Changes? Mom's perfectly manicured hand flew to her throat. What changes? Effective immediately, Maxwell Industries is a subsidiary of Wilson Global Enterprises. Sarah began distributing folders to the shell-shocked board members. Our legal team has all the necessary documentation. Amanda jumped up. But my retreat. I'm supposed to be networking with Wilson Global executives. That program has been cancelled, Sarah replied coolly. Due to restructuring. Dad was frantically flipping through the documents. This is impossible. How did we not know about this? Perhaps, Sarah suggested, you were too busy planning luxury vacations to notice your company was being acquired. The board, however, has been fully aware and supportive of this transition for months. I watched as my father's face went from red to white. The board members were nodding. They'd all known, all supported my vision for the company's future. All kept my secret, tired of watching my parents' blatant nepotism destroy the company's potential. But who? Mom stammered. Who owns Wilson Global? That was my cue. I pressed the button that opened the hidden door, stepping out onto the private staircase that led down to the boardroom. The clicking of my Louboutins on the steps echoed in the stunned silence. I believe I can answer that, Mother. The look on their faces was worth every moment of the past 5 years. Dad's jaw actually dropped. Mom's expensive lipstick disappeared as she pressed her lips together in shock. And Amanda, perfect, privileged Amanda, fell back into her chair as if her strings had been cut. Emma. Dad's voice was barely a whisper. What? How? Wilson Global Enterprises is my company, I said clearly, taking my place at the head of the table. I built it from scratch while you were busy grooming Amanda for a position she'll never have. That's impossible. Amanda shrieked. You're just a junior analyst. I smiled, thinking of all the nights I'd worked in secret, all the deals I'd orchestrated while they thought I was failing at my entry-level job. Actually, I said, opening my own folder, I think you'll find it's very possible. Sarah, please distribute the new organizational charts. The next hour was a symphony of chaos as my parents realized the full extent of what had happened. Their positions were being eliminated. Their access to company resources, including the private jet Amanda loved to borrow, was revoked. Their carefully constructed world of privilege and nepotism was crumbling. You can't do this to us, Mom finally said, tears streaming down her face. We're family. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Was it family when you canceled my birthday dinner to fund Amanda's vacation? When you gave her a made-up executive position while I couldn't get promoted? When they what, Ms. Wilson? Sarah prompted, using my professional name, the name that now adorned the company letterhead. I stood up, smoothing my Chanel jacket. When they forgot that sometimes the quiet ones are the ones you should watch out for. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind of corporate restructuring, press releases, and watching my family's carefully constructed world implode. I sat in my new office, previously my father's pride and joy, reviewing the coverage on multiple screens. Maxwell Industries acquired by Wilson Global. A new era begins. Corporate prodigy Emma Wilson reveals true identity. From junior analyst to billion-dollar CEO, the ultimate corporate undercover boss. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the announcement. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to reconnect. Old classmates claimed they'd always believed in me. Even my childhood piano teacher sent a congratulatory email. But the most interesting messages were from my family. Dad, we need to talk. Please. I don't understand how this happened. Mom, Emma darling, surely we can work something out? Family is family. Amanda, 27 messages. You ruined my life. How am I supposed to explain this to my Instagram followers? A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Sarah entered with a thick stack of reports. The transition team finished their review, Sarah said as she sat in one of the new chairs I had put in. Your father's financial choices over the last 2 years were unusual. I raised an eyebrow. Unusual how? He's been using company money to support Amanda. Private jet rides, fake consulting jobs, and huge expense claims. The board is furious. And what about my mom's marketing team? Sarah looked uncomfortable. Even worse. She's been hiring Amanda's friends for high-level jobs even though they're not qualified. The whole department needs a reset. I leaned back in my chair and looked out at the Manhattan skyline through the tall windows. Have legal do a full audit. I want everything on record. Already done, Sarah said, then hesitated. Your parents are downstairs. They want to see you. Of course they did. I checked my reflection in my computer screen. Perfect makeup, neat hair. Power is all about the details. Send them up, I said. And Sarah? Have security nearby just in case. 5 minutes later, my parents walked into my office. They didn't look as polished as usual. Dad's tie was crooked and Mom's mascara was smudged. They looked human. Emma, Dad began, stopping to take in the room. The old hunting paintings were gone, replaced with modern screens showing real-time business updates. His antique furniture had been swapped for sleek, modern designs. Please sit, I said, pointing to the chairs across from my desk. The same chairs I'd sat in while being told I wasn't good enough. How could you do this? Mom asked. We're your parents. Interesting, I said, pulling up a file. Let's talk about what being parents means. Should we go over the last 5 years? The missed birthdays? Always comparing me to Amanda? Blocking every chance I had at work. We never tried to stop you, Dad started. Really? I pressed a button. His voice filled the room in a recording. Keep Emma in her current position. She's not ready for a promotion. Another clip played. Mom to her marketing team. Don't include Emma in the training program. Give that spot to Amanda's friend Jennifer. They sat in silence, listening to recording after recording of how they'd held me back. How did you do all this while working here? Dad finally asked. I smiled. Ever wonder why I chose that tiny cubicle near the server room? Why I worked late all the time? That gave me access to everything. You were collecting information, Mom said slowly. This whole time. While you were busy promoting Amanda's Instagram posts as marketing, I was building the biggest digital transformation company in the country. While Dad created fake jobs for Amanda's friends, I was buying companies around the world. But the money, how could you afford this? Dad asked. Remember Grandma's small inheritance? The one you said I wasted on silly ideas? I invested it. Every time you bragged about Amanda at dinner, I was closing deals. Every time you ignored me, I was gaining investors. I stood and walked to the window. Now Maxwell Industries is mine. But I'm not heartless. HR has put together generous severance packages for both of you. Severance. Mom whispered. And Amanda? Amanda will need to find a real job, I said, where she earns her position like everyone else. Maybe an entry-level job will teach her a thing or two. You're enjoying this, Dad said. Tearing everything down. No, Dad. I'm fixing what you broke. The stock has already gone up 15% since I took over. The board supports my plan. And the clients Amanda scared off? They're coming back. Right on time, security arrived at my door. Your severance packages will be sent to your homes, I said calmly. You have 1 hour to clear your offices. The terms are final.